Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome artist, co-trustee of House of Taylor, and officer of the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, Quinn Tivey.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Maybe one more time. Hello, everyone. Cool. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us for the first ever all-youth special session at the International AIDS Conference. I have the privilege of introducing our speakers and explaining how this whole thing works. First, can I see a show of hands? Who here is under 25? Being over 25, I need some glasses, but for those that are a little bit farther back, get on up. I saw some movement, I saw the hands. Get on up and come to the front, because we have some more seats reserved up here. Come on, a little movement. Yeah, I see some people coming. Great. Let's pack it up here. We love everyone who's joined today, but as I'm being told, 40 is not the new 20, so let's get everybody under 25 crammed in. Thank you. Now, for those of you who are already here, you should have one of these little red and green paddles. Can I see those paddles? Everybody's got a paddle? Yeah, cool. Thank you, thank you. Every time you want to agree with something someone is saying on stage today, or you want to say yes, or you want to show encouragement, or whatever it is, flash the green side, okay? And every time you disagree, or you want to say no, or it's also something that maybe they say something that just really, riles you up, or you get really frustrated about as well, show the red side. And if you have trouble with color, just twirl it around. We love the enthusiasm one way or another. And now, finally, before I introduce everyone, we will have a curated Twitter feed on display throughout the session, popping up here. So if you would like to participate, please be sure to use the hashtag #PassTheMic and the hashtag AIDS2018. Our team will sort through the hundreds of tweets, and we will show the best on the screen. So please make sure to engage. And here we go. Everyone, please welcome to the stage our youth participants. We've got Dee coming up. Come on, let's get a round of applause. We've got Dee, Josephine, Baraka, Peter, Nancy, Daniel, Chinmay, Bruna, Danny, Melody, and Zach. Woo! Yeah. That's great. And now, please also welcome our moderator, founder of the Charlize Theron Africa Outreach Project, Academy Award-winning actress, and United Nations Messenger of Peace, Charlize Theron. A big round of applause.
Thanks, Quinn. Hello, everybody! Wow. This is, I'm going to sound so old right now. This is about the coolest thing ever. Because like Quinn just said, this is a milestone. This is the first ever all-youth special session at an international AIDS conference ever. Not the last. Right, guys? Right. All right, perfect. So I am really honored to be your moderator today. I don't know how I got the gig, but I'm very happy to be here. I always feel like my kids think I'm kind of cool when I'm hanging out with young people, so thank you for that. I'm also not going to take up any time because we have limited time today, and I really want to give our panel as much time as possible. So we're going to have a conversation about some issues facing HIV today, and they're really going to take the lead. So the first thing I'm just going to start off is, before we came here today, A large group of youth-led networks met this weekend at a youth pre-conference. And I know, Bruna, you were there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that experience was like?
Thank you, Charlize, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Bruna, I'm with the Amsterdam Youth Force. And Amsterdam Youth Force with Y+, we've organized the youth pre-conference, as you said, with a lot of us here that were there gathering for this large meeting of young-led organizations, and it was a very nice moment to actually convene before the conference and think about what meaningful participation means to us and what we want to achieve being here and from the next steps, because we've seen that there's a lot of challenges, but we're also very clear that we are very powerful, we are very strong, we are organized more than ever, and we have many things on our side, like we have the power to reach our peers, you know how to use technology on our favor, we have a lot of good and so many strengths that we just, want to propel and put forward. And that was the moment that we convened and gathered and just strategize how we're going to do that from now on, and starting with this session right here.
Wow, that sounds amazing. You touched upon a little bit there, meaningful youth participation. And I was just wondering, for some of you, what does that mean? What does it mean to have meaningful youth participation? Sure. Go ahead.
Well, I guess it's about focusing on youth when you try to provide services for young people. So you always have to consider young people, its challenges and their fears and everything like relates to the service. So I heard during this conference that a lot of young persons struggling, for example, with opening hours of clinics because they are open during the school, so they don't have even the possibility to attend to go to a doctor. So you always should consider youth within services.
Got it. And you want to touch upon something?
So I would like to say that meaningful participation for me is youth are the pillars of future, and if we are not counting youth in any of the space which is provided and which is still available, and I would just like to say it is nothing for us without us. So youth should be involved in each and every platform. If there is no platform, we should create a platform to empower youth, to build their capacity, and to make them future leaders.
Right,
Thank you.
Right. Go ahead.
For me, as a young people, for me, the youth engagement is a fight. A literally fight, just by one reason. I am from Ukraine, and the Eastern Europe and Central Asian region is quite different from all the other regions. And it's the only region that has failed the Millennium Goals, that has failed treatment coverage, all the services, and it's all failed. And we're sitting here and talking about the youth engagement, but at this time, that those who are making decisions in our countries, they don't even know what is stigma and why should they talk to youth on HIV. So for me, Teenagizer, we became a part of national, for example, coordinating committee in Ukraine. But we literally fighted for that for 2 years. We fought for engagement to the Global Fund advocacy for money for the other teenagers. So for me, this is a fight, and I just want to make it clear how it is in countries of Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Thank you.
It's great. We all realize and acknowledge that our struggle is different in different parts of the world. So thank you for sharing that. I have a question. If anybody feels they want to touch upon this, how has your experience with HIV programs met or not met your needs as young people?
So I would start with my introduction. I am Chinmay from India, and I am born with HIV. So I'm working with HIV since I was 9 years old. Talking about my experience, I have been struggling with the services which were already available during the time I got detected. But slowly and gradually, I got myself empowered. I started speaking about myself, and I am not struggling anymore for getting all those services. But there are lots of youth, there are lots of adolescents and children who are still struggling a lot with their medicines. So I feel that HIV services is really important, and it should be given. It should be made available for children for youth who are still, who needs to be build their capacity.
Zach?
So I'm Zach from Los Angeles, and I didn't even experience or come face to face with HIV services until I was 20 years old. And so all through high school, I was closeted and dealing with sexuality. And then I come to UCLA, and luckily I ran into a program called AMP, Arts-Based Multiple Intervention Peer Education. And through that program, I was able to become empowered and learn about HIV. And my first partner, who I met off Craigslist when I was 19, was living with HIV and didn't tell me for 6 months. So my needs weren't met until I was a young adult. And even in a place like California, in Los Angeles, where it's liberal, and from the outside perspective, it seems like there's like a lot of robust, programming there. There's still a lot of young people getting left behind. And I really wanted to jump back to the first question, just because I feel like there are so many components to meaningful youth participation, and in particular, I think young people need to be in a decision-making capacity and not just in an advisory role. I think young people need to have access to independent resources to implement our own programs and projects. I think young people... I also think young people should be able to hold veto powers on youth-oriented projects proposed by non-youth program creators. I'm thankful that this panel is really diverse. Oftentimes, there's like 1 or 2 young people who get to sit on a stage or at a panel or in a discussion just to meet a quota, and it's very tokenistic, and that also needs to change. And one of my last points for that first question that I wanted to bring up is that young people need to be promoted to director-level positions and given more salary-based options and not just hourly.
So I notice a lot of green paddles. Let me see. Are you guys agreeing with all of that? Well, that's across the board. As my friend says, yes. I know. I'm cool. I told you guys. So in listening to you all, and I was sitting in the green room watching some of the slides. I don't know. Did you guys see some of the slides that were on the screen before? Well, you guys saw some of them, right? So there's a general feeling that comes across for me that HIV might not be considered a primary concern anymore. And just from my personal experience of hearing young teenage girls talking about having a bigger fear of teenage pregnancy versus HIV, this is something I wanted to ask you guys. What are your opinions about that? Do you think it is enough of a concern within the young community? Yeah, go for it.
So my name is Peter Diaz. I'm coming from Malawi, and I think right now young people are still a concern. So looking at, that's the reason why as young people we want to be involved in programming when it comes to HIV and AIDS programs. So apart from being afraid of maybe early pregnancies, maybe other diseases like STIs, but I still feel like young people are still having that feeling that we are afraid of HIV. And that's the reason why today we are trying to others that we should have that equal opportunity when it comes to programming around HIV and AIDS programs. Maybe just to add again on the first question, I feel like young people to be participating in the programming should all go to all the stages. So starting from maybe identifying a problem or identifying an opportunity in programming, designing the programs, we should all include it. Because as we always say, there's nothing for us as the young people if the young people are not involved. That means they're designing their own programs and not for us as the young people. So I feel like the challenge is still there. We're still afraid of HIV, and that's the reason why we're crying out today that we should be involved in the HIV programming.
Amazing. Yeah.
Coming back to words of my colleague from Africa, my young colleague from Africa, I would like to say that actually, as I can see in a lot of countries, even in African countries, the situation with HIV is much more better. Not in the statistics, but in the consideration of the problem. Because in African countries, I guess, the problem of HIV is a priority number 1 for healthcare. But if we look back to Ukraine, sorry, I don't want to be a drama queen, but I really need to share the situation in our countries. And we have a cases from my colleague, which will be a plenary speaker. When she was at school, she's HIV positive. The teacher of biology told everything perfect about HIV. But in the end of the lesson, she told, I wish you've never met those people. So that's not just the reflections of needs and interests of young people in like priorities or strategies. It's about education. We don't even have equal information, which can be like considered as such a prevention. There is no prioritizing for young people in national interests at all, not only Ukraine, but in the other countries. But I think we will soon change it. Of course, we need the support of those who are here, and the conference is a perfect opportunity for us to be heard and to be supported. So, nothing about us without us.
Yay!
Yeah, and just to tap what Danny was saying is this, I think this is the problem of the framing. So like when we say people are not afraid of HIV anymore, that's the whole question. It's just because we don't have education, and then why build this fear? Why build this stigma? If we were, to have access to comprehensive sexual education, if you link HIV to SRHR programs, and you have like a broader none of like our sexuality, like a gender, and like get to know ourselves and like be educated about sex, about pleasure, about all of this, it wouldn't be needing in this need for like to fear HIV, because that's the bigger issue here. So that's why we are advocating here for, is just to integrate these. We're more and more talking about HIV, not just operating in a vacuum. It's just putting in a larger place that we can discuss being ourselves, being our sexuality. We are a generation that is not afraid to talk about sex, and that's a great thing.
Yeah. All right, my name is Dee from Lesotho, and I'll just like to add up on what they said, because those were very great points. We really need to broaden up on the information and the education on HIV, because really now, HIV is not really an issue. And I loved what my foundation ambassador said yesterday, Jay Glazer, like, how many of you guys take pills every day for a living? Needless the HIV pills, needless, but how many of you guys take pills every day? We all have those people who take vitamins every day to survive. We all have those people who have hypertension and all the stuff. And really, with taking HIV medication should be a problem. And like Daniel said, nothing without youth for youth. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course, like we agree. I agree on what they said, but I would here like to give a perspective of person living with HIV. Everybody is taking medicine, but think about a child who is taking medicine, born with HIV. Now it's 17 years, shifting from first line to second line, taking all the side effects which I felt in my childhood, I again experienced during when I was shifted to second line. So yes, we don't have to fear for HIV, but who will feel like I am having my problems, I am taking medicine, I am alive, but who will deal with my mental problems? I have psychological problems which is killing me every day, though I am fortunate enough that I am able to deal all those problems with me because I am here, I am fortunate enough to be here. But those friends in our countries who are not fortunate enough to be here or to deal with their problems, what about them? We are facing every day with psychological problems, and this is what people, youth are dying because of it. If I talk about youth who are in my country, they are scared because of disclosure problem. I am open with my status, but what about them? So this is HIV, which is a part of our life, and it is a concern for us because I don't want anyone who talk about me as a negative person. I would just like to share one example. Though I am born with HIV, I have not written it over here that I am born with HIV. But if I disclose my status with someone, they might think me as I am gay. They might think me that I have done something wrong. This is what I am facing now. So it's like HIV is concern, but apart from HIV, stigma is the biggest concern over here. So though I am happily living with HIV, I am happily taking medicines, but on the other part, HIV is always a concern for the people living with HIV. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Nancy Shimba, coming from Zambia, working with Elevate Young Voices. I just want to add up what my colleague has said. I think living with HIV is much easier than living with cancer. Is anybody agreeing with me? Because cancer has got so much pain in it. But with HIV, nobody can tell that you're HIV positive. I've been living HIV since I was born, but nobody can tell. I've got this chance to speak about my status because I have support from family and friends, a lot of people. But if you look at our fellow young youths out there in our countries, others are having mental issues to face. They have no support from people around them. And that's where a lot of stigma is coming from. Young people are being discriminated. I may give an example. I might go to the healthy facility and explain to the health care provider saying, I'm facing side effects with the drugs. What will they tell me? They just say, no, hold on to it, it will go. But they don't know what I'm feeling inside me. And that leads to denial. People stop taking their medication. And when the youth gets back to treatment, there's treatment failure. So what we as youths and young people are lacking is support and being put first priority in the program of HIV, because we are the people that feel it and we are the people that face it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To add on that, my name is Josephine. I think when you look at the past and where we are, that's what brings up people to think it is not yet a priority or it is not a primary thing. But I want to let you know that HIV is still a primary issue, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. It is still primary. If we still have people dying because of AIDS-related death, if we still have babies being born with HIV, if we still have people failing on medication, if we still have people that cannot access medication, then there is no way you're going to tell me that it is not primary. And if we do not think that it is not primary, then we will not even achieve the goals that we want to achieve in the future. HIV is still primary. And to go back to the second question, I'm lucky that I was born HIV positive, but then I grew up in psychosocial support groups. And that met my needs physically, emotionally, and psychologically. I thank God for that.
That's incredible. I just want to touch on that really quickly because I think you guys have brought it to light. The psychosocial aspect of it is a huge part of not just living with HIV or dealing with HIV and AIDS in your community, but also adding to that the fact that you guys are going through your adolescence and entering your teenage years. So all of the pressure of being a teenager on top of your health is a lot. And so when you don't have that psychosocial aspect to a program, do you guys think it can work? Or do you think a program needs a psychosocial aspect to it? Sure.
Thank you. Giving me medicine does not mean that I'm going to take it. Yeah. And that has been proven. Therefore, we need another component that will bring in something to make this person take this medicine. It is not easy to take medicine on a daily basis. Yeah. I take 1 pill in the morning. Others take 5. So, and you're telling me I have to take it until the cure comes. For heaven's sake, I need something else that will make me feel like I'm family, I'm part of them, and okay, however much I have this, I can still take this medicine and move on. We need that hope, and that hope can only be gotten in family support groups or in psychosocial support groups. Thank you.
As my colleague has said, I myself was once under denial because I lacked support from friends. Once friends found out that I was HIV positive, they all ran away from me. Why? Because they had no information about HIV. I would never miss an appointment to collect my medication, but I just collect and pack them home. I wasn't taking them. But once I got to have that support I really needed upon my life, I now understood saying, no matter how I may try not to take medication, the HIV still lives in me. And it's up to me to take it and live a healthy life. And one thing as HIV adolescents and youths would love, not to be treated so special, as if they are different from any other human being. We're all human, one human being, and we can all achieve the same things. Nothing is special about someone who's got HIV in life.
Let's check in with the audience. Do you guys agree with that? What do you think? Wow. As Oprah would say, we're having aha moments by all of you. Everybody's just feeling it. Does anybody else have something to say about that? Go for it.
So as we are just talking about psychological aspects, I would like to focus one thing which I observed in India back. we are having a group of 100 children, those who are born with HIV. I'm not talking about who acquired after their birth, but the children who are born with HIV and now are into their adolescent or young age, they feel psychologically that their parents are the main cause of ruining their life because of they have to deal with HIV. So here this thought in mind is really serious, just because no one is just getting up and saying that, come on, give me HIV, I would love to take HIV. But this thought, when a child thinks that he might be also going through suicidal tendencies, depression, and other things which are not at all addressed in our program, we just think of counseling, but we are lacking behind from quality counseling, which is really necessary for a youth who is living with HIV. So, which we need to work on really hard for. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, about the psychosocial support. Well, I lost my father when I was 8 because of AIDS, and like the mind situation is like it's very common for all the teenagers, because most of them were born in the end of the 90s, and their parents were infected, and they live with one or without parents at all. And we have the occupied territory, and the teenagers are moving from there without parents. And there still, in 2014, the programs which were supported by the Global Fund for Teenagers, were over. And of course, government didn't take the responsibilities for them. So there is a very big need in psychosocial support for teenagers right now. And if we will not do it now, they will grow up with really big problems. I know that.
Yeah, give him an applause. Yes, I want to quickly touch on that. Hi, I'm Melody. I'm the Dutch Youth Ambassador on Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights. So not an expert on HIV/AIDS as the rest of the panel, which I've learned a lot from already in this during our session, but also now in the panel. But what I also hear, and I think to come back to your question, why maybe people are more afraid or more focused on teenage pregnancy or other issues, other barriers other than HIV/AIDS, is maybe because we're not using an entirely integrated approach. So when it comes to sexuality, and Peter also, but different of the panel touched upon it, we need sexuality education and health promotion, but to be integrated and not being reactive. So when you're HIV positive, you'll come to a service and you'll get the services. We need to reach the people that are not positive yet. And that's if someone comes in because she's afraid of having teenage pregnancy, that's your entry to also talk about all the other elements of the broad spectrum of SRHR. So we need this holistic and positive approach of SRHR, and this is not a message to us and program implementers, but specifically actually policymakers and donors and funders to not focus on one of the specific. You can't pick and choose SRHR topics as it fits your government. It has to be a holistic approach to reach everyone.
You can tell the audience, looks like everybody's agreeing with that. There we go. Does anybody else want to say something? Yes, go ahead.
And talking of services and sexual information given to the youth, we really need to implement youth giving those services to other youth. Because really, when we just come into reality, when you are a young person and you go to a health facility, you find a 50-year-old lady there, and then you come there, you brought STIs. What are you going to say to them? So we really need to implement that, because I know I faced discrimination from the health facility by an old person when I went there for initiation of my ART. So really that will help put our youth in the health facilities so that we can be more open to them. Thank you.
Yes.
So just to add on what my friend has already said, I think it's time that as program implementers, we should focus on specific programs that would target the young people in that way that they like. So a health center is supposed to be, or a clinic is supposed to be a space where a young person will get counseling. But then instead, if a young person goes there, as my friend has said, you find someone who is older than that person and you're afraid. You cannot talk out, you cannot be open. That's the reason why we have to be programming our programs in that special way that will target the young people and give them a safe space so that they can be discussing about the issues around this HIV and SRHR. I would give an example in Africa. We're working with Taco Africa that we are using the power of football to give out the message to the young people. So at the same time they're playing football, at the same time they're also discussing about the issues. Same thing when it comes to the project that we're doing with AVET, Young Voices. We are discussing about these issues on internet, online, where you're afraid of going maybe to the clinic or the health centers because we are afraid of the people the way they're going to treat us that side. So I think it's time that we design the programs specifically that will target the young people in the way that the young people will like it.
Yeah, I want to echo what everyone's saying. I think we're all touching on it like so beautifully. I think, HIV and any issue in particular, if you're approaching it, it's more than HIV. It's more than just about HIV. It's about our lives. So you need to touch on these other intersections of our lives. And like, my friend on the panel was saying that that if someone's coming in for pregnancy or abortion, it's an entry point. And so we need to find what these other entry points are. And in particular, what Dee also just said is we need peer-based support. We need faith-based support. We need sexual support. We need financial support. We need interpersonal support for dating and relationships. It's about all. We need a holistic approach. Is what I'm getting, and it's the only way we're really going to fight HIV because there's no single issue. As to quote Audre Lorde, there's no single issue because we don't live single issue lives.
I want to touch on that a little bit because I agree so much with you guys. I think that there are so many drivers when it comes to HIV, and you can't just look at HIV and compartmentalize it. You have to be able to have a holistic approach to it. The one thing that I find sometimes a struggle, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around sometimes, is this idea, this fear, this taboo of talking about sex with kids when we work in youth programs. And we know that sex is one of the biggest modes of becoming HIV positive. So how do you address something like that when a lot of communities they just think that's a can of worms that shouldn't be open? Teenagers and sex should not be talked about.
Even if parents or any elder person don't talk about sex with the young people, but the fact that we should know that young people are indulging in sex. No matter how far you try to hide it, they're still indulging themselves in sex. So the best that we can do is talk to them about sex. Talk to them about safer sex. Talk to them about condom use. And also talk to them, we're all human beings. We're born with that sexual feeling in our bodies. And there's no way we can deny it. So the best way is have youth-friendly spaces for young people so that they feel free to talk about sex to themselves. And also have a young adolescent peer that is also there to educate them about sexual feelings, how to keep themselves safe.
Go for it.
Yeah, so of course I agree with what my friend said, but here the sexual education with kids should be included in school, in the curriculums, but not only for children, also for parents, that what will be the benefits of sexual education when it is given to a child, and what are the risks if a child is not aware about the sexual education, and how we can prevent our child from keeping away from risk. If parents will be understanding the benefits of this initiative, then I hope in India the culture might change, because of course in India it's a big taboo talking about sex, talking about if we talk about the accessing services of HIV, or if we talk about consent of a children, so it should be 18. So if I am 16 years old and I want to have sex, I cannot go and buy a condom. If I am 16 years old and if I want to access services of HIV, I should take my parents. So of course I am not going to take my parents to the to the pharmacy to buy a condom, or neither to the HIV testing center to test myself, because I always experience into closed doors and no one is looking for that. So we should aware children as well as parents at the same time. Thank you.
I think, what we heard, those are very good interventions to, like you said, the school-based approach, but also addressing parents, what is often, I think, not the first thing that we do. We start with the children. But I think we need very parallel kind of interventions going on. So you need to address the children, you need to address the parents so that they don't go home and be judged because they raise questions back home. Also the teachers, but also I think the main important thing is to make sure that the people that are not now on board on and think that sexuality education might promote sex, to make them aware of how it actually promotes low-risk behavior, young people to negotiate their own barriers and to take choices that are better for them. We need to make sure that they understand that, so the parents and the teachers and the government people, because it does result in the things that they want the same. So in my position, I had the honor to travel to different countries where I could speak to young people, but also policymaker organizations and also people that are opposing to comprehensive sexuality education. But when you can show them some researches, as we had in the Netherlands, where we can see, when we implemented comprehensive sexuality educations in schools, the age of young people starting with sex went up. Teenage pregnancy went down, HIV went down. So we can actually show that the results that they also want to get to, one of the main manners, and I believe that's the only manner, is to talk about them in a positive way, not only about what Bruna just mentioned before, not only about the risks and STIs and teenage pregnancy, but about pleasure, barriers. How do you ask someone out on a date? How do you go for a relationship? How do you break up? So by doing positive health promotion, but we have to start while we integrate that to convince people why that's needed and why that's not promoting risky, safe sexual behavior.
I have a story. Teenager provides peer trainings on HIV and some of STIs in schools. And I remember I went to the class where the classmates were like 15 or 16 years old, and I just showed them the condom, and they were laughing naturally for 20 minutes. That's not funny. That's not funny because in the end of the training, they were taking the condoms and saying, "Oh, come on, man, we will have a lot of parties in the summer. Come on, take more and more." And I understand if I did not give them the condom, they would have whatever it is, like STIs, HIV, unexpected pregnancy, and so on. The thing is, we can't convince our people. The thing is, in the Soviet Union, there was no sex. And neither parents, neither teachers, they never use word sex at all. Even on the national level, the Ministry of Education, when we propose them to, let's do something on sexual education, they don't use the word sex at all. They use only reproductive or something. So there is no sexual education at all, and that's a big problem because we have a growing epidemic of syphilis, of HIV, and the statistics of pregnancies in 16 years old are shocking. So something like that. But we need to change it, and we already have some changes. We created the online course, which is popular for teenagers, and it is, like you said, that was very important. It is in a positive key. It's saying about the pleasure, the gender rights, and self, you know what I mean. So
yeah, I was going to actually ask about that. How do you guys feel that the sex education is diverse enough, or does it just tend to be heterosexual relationship sex, or do you feel like the education part of sex education covers the variety of relationships that young people might find themselves in? Of course. Zach, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, in the United States, absolutely not. Yeah, there's only 13 states in the United States that require sexual health education be scientifically and medically accurate. So there's 2/3 of the states who knows what's going on. Most of it's abstinence-based, which, the U.S. in particular has a problem in the U.S. South. And if you look at a map, I've seen heat maps of where the HIV epidemic is concentrated, mostly in big cities in the U.S. South. I've also seen a heat map of where abstinence-based only education is implemented, and it's mostly in the U.S. South. And it's that's not a coincidence. There's not enough representation in sexual health education across, and I'm speaking as a U.S. representative, I guess, but even in Southern California, I was going through health class, and I'm like this, closeted kid, and my health class was like 6 weeks during the summer, and everyone we wanted the grade. We wanted to get an A. And so we were all copying answers out of the back of the book. I didn't learn anything. So when my first partner told me he had HIV, I was scared shitless. I was like, what does that mean? I have no idea. Like, I had to go, luckily I had a primary provider who was so empathetic and also queer, like randomly, and like gave me the reassurance that I was going to be fine. And I know that's not everyone's experience. It was a very privileged experience. But I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much space, but yeah, no, there's not enough going on for comprehensive sex ed in the United States and around the world. We need it to be more robust. We need it to be more inclusive of sexuality. We need to be empathy fueled, sexually pleasure focused. Like, we need it to be pleasure focused as well. We want to learn about our bodies and what works for us and what doesn't, and we need to have the interpersonal components. That way we can know about dating and relationships and how to break up and do all those things. We need the wraparound services. Otherwise, we're not going to see a decrease in HIV infections.
So let me add something to that, because I think the key to achieve this is really to invest in peer-to-peer education, because we can easily talk about sex, safer sex, well-being and self-confidence on eye level, and always when it comes to sex education, it depends on the teacher. So besides the curriculum and the policy making, what does the teacher and what does the teacher believes in? So we at Youth Against AIDS, we provide peer-to-peer education, and we really get the feeling that it's a valuable add-on to people, to young people, because they can express themselves in the way they are. They can ask their questions, and this is not a HIV-focused question. It's a general question in terms of sexuality, first time having sex, and all these things. So it's very important to be relevant for them and to provide relevant information. So yeah, I totally agree with Bruna. So we do need a universal coverage of sexual health and well-being in general.
I just want to quickly check in with the audience. Do you guys agree with that? Where do you land on that? Yeah? All right, continue. Yeah. Oh, look who's joining us.
Okay, in my opinion, in African, especially in African society, still we want enough education concern about the sexual issues, because many African people, they didn't have an experience concern about the sexual issues. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? How do you think we change that?
Through mass medias, maybe mass medias and other sources may help us in our societies, especially in Africa.
Yeah, go for it.
So tapping into all of that, and then going back to meaningful youth participation too, I think that we talked about intersectionality, but also know that it's not tolerance. I don't like this word. It's about diversity and meaningful inclusion, in the sense that, just briefly, I'm a feminist, and not only in my activism, but also in my scholarship. So feminist scholarship tells us that we have to understand our positionality and our epistemology. So we have to we are here in a place that we are all privileged, so we have to come here in a place that we understand those who have been invisibilized, and voices that for centuries have been, long gone. So when we're talking about all of that, and in sex ed, and including youth, in political spaces, and decision making and all of that, we have to make sure that it's not racist, it's not, there's no discrimination to any queer, because even the LGBTQ movement, when you put people in so many boxes and letters, you're just limiting all the spectrum of queerness and everything that it's there. So the thing of, So the approach here, and the importance of peer-to-peer service, and approach of this cycle, and support groups of youth, it's basically that, because we understand each other. So it's just the face of not having, white men in suits dictating us, because they're not come from this. So that's basically it's just having meaningful inclusion, participation, but diversity also, not leaving anyone behind.
I want to just really quickly include, since we have a live Twitter feed here, I've noticed you guys have been looking back, and I'm just wondering, have you seen anything up there that has sparked something for you, conversation-wise? Yeah.
I saw a question, it was a while ago. What are, so I'm also asking to the other ones, what are kind of the success stories of meeting NYP when it comes to HIV, and what are stories that we think like, maybe not do that if you want to have meaningful youth?
I definitely want to know that, because I think we don't ask you guys enough. What should we stop doing?
If I can say one example myself, and you already said a bit about Teenagizer, for example, what we heard now peer-to-peer, and we heard different opinions about what youth-friendly service is, but to just make sure that we are just talking about our own references and the people we spoke to, but I can't represent for all young people, especially as you said, you have always these different boxes, but then you have the young people. But we tick all those other boxes as well to make sure that if you are making services for young people, consult those young people and ask them what youth-friendly is to them, not only to us as a panel or to one of the success stories that you've heard in another country or another region, but to make sure that you consult your own young people to make sure it's youth-friendly. And I think things that we've seen, Teenagizers uses media for advocacy and engages young people in that. You have Taya in Ethiopia, where they actually have a review panel within the Ministry of Health, and they can review policies made by the government. Exactly what you said, not only to have an advisory role, but to actually have decision-making power. And my position itself, it advocated for by the Dutch-led NGO Choice for Youth and Sexuality, that mobilizes young people with tools and mobilize them in international advocacy places, but also develop different tools on how do you engage young people meaningfully. And the call to action that Bruna said is actually based on those principles of called flower of participation. Come talk to me if you want to know more about that. I won't take too much space now. But those are examples that I can share of actual meaningful youth participation.
Thank you. So the call for action for me is like simple. I said that we were fighting for like 2 years to get to the national level in Ukraine, and we actually did a lot. And coming back to a course of sexual, we will also fight soon with the conservatives, with those who deny HIV and so on, to implement it at schools. And this is my call to action, that teenagers, if you all can hear me, teenagers are ready to fight for their rights. Teenagers are ready to engage, and we want you to engage us. And like we brought here with Amsterdam Youth Force together, we really did a lot here. A lot of my colleagues from Ukraine, it's the first time in history when, for example, young colleagues sitting in the in the coordinating committee of this conference, and we brought here Ukrainian volunteers, the big quantities. So, and thank you. And I think all the Ukrainian delegation, we would like to share that we are happy to be here. And Charlize, we would like to invite you to Ukraine. Will you come to us?
I'm there. You don't need to twist my arm.
All right.
Yeah, I'll be there. Sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh no, I was just snapping.
Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
So, like, if we are talking about inclusion of youth, of course, people who, like, I would shift a little bit, just because we should first think that our voices should be heard, and each and every person, each and every youth who is struggling with their life to build their capacity should be taken into account. So, if I'm talking about India, there are lots of youth who are struggling with talking with me as an individual, that of course I am living with HIV, I am there to listen him, but he is afraid of talking with me just because he will think that his status might be open. So of course, like, there are really good initiatives which we are talking about, but how we indulge those youth into our program, how we bring them with us so that they can, empower themselves, they can talk about their problems. So here we are lacking behind. Those who are left behind are always left behind because they are not that strong enough that we are. So we should think about who are left behind, who are not able to bring them up, and how we can bring them up is the main challenge which we should think further for youth as we are into International AIDS Conference. And I guess if they are with us in future, then that will be our success. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to take a quick moment because we asked our youth panelists if there was any key leaders in the HIV world that they would like to hear from. And somebody that kept being mentioned, and we're very happy to be joined by, is Ambassador Deborah Birx. And I know she's here in the audience today. She's U.S. Global AIDS Coordinator and U.S. Special Representative for Global Health Diplomacy. And Deborah, thank you for being here with us today. Where are you? You're here. There you are.
I'm with the young people. They let me sit here with them for a moment.
So what are you feeling down there? Are you feeling a certain energy?
Well, I really appreciate how clearly you articulated how you wanted to be involved in the planning at the political level and at the local level, how you wanted to be involved in the implementation, in the peer-peer outreach and work, and then you wanted to be involved in the really evaluating and giving us feedback on what was working and what was not working. And I heard a really great example about Ethiopia and the Netherlands and how they really engaged youth representatives at the highest political level. I think what I'm really interested in is how about the local level? Do you have examples of what we could do better at the local community level and who we should be engaging with to ensure your voices are heard? Because sometimes we are a bit of a distance. I had a great week this week so far because we got to meet with our DREAMS recipients and our DREAMS ambassadors, and that stands for Determined, Resilient, Empowered, AIDS-Free, Mentored, and Safe Young Women, so they can remain HIV-free, and it's comprehensive. But they have some great suggestions of stuff I have to change right now, which we will go back and work on. But how does that become not one-offs, but something that we can constantly be engaging in at the local level?
Yeah, who wants to take that? So more on a local level.
Okay, like you saying, who should you be approaching? I think we are the people that we need to be approached, because we are the people on the ground. We are the people that see what's happening. Because if you leave us behind and approach higher people that are higher than us, they don't know what we feel. They don't know what's happening on the ground. So for them, they'll just say, we're going for this, and I'm sure this will work for the adolescents or youths. But they're not sure. Because some of the things we usually go against too, because they don't work for us. We as youths, we as adolescents really know and feel what we really need in our lives.
Yeah, this is your time. You can have a conversation with Deborah.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking a question that how we can work more over local level. Ma'am, I would like to say that first of all, we need to invest more in youth-centric approach. So just now, if I talk about example in India, there is no at all initiative or there is no at all such youth-centric approach focusing only on youth, which can encounter youth which are like me as well as youth who are at the grassroots level. So if we need to touch the ground, we need to first show a youth-centric approach, which is really important nowadays because we are driving the epidemic, and India is having adolescent of more than 4-5 million. So it is really difficult to be there in the ground, but we need more support, not only support for money, but also there are other supports which can empower youth at a grassroots level, and we can bring them up. Thank you.
Just what my friend has said here, I think if you are designing programs for the young people, I'll say it again, it's very, very important that you approach us as the young people. We don't want that situation that you are designing maybe messages for us, and then you are talking about condom use, or maybe you are talking about abstinence, why we want more than abstinence. So you should approach us, hear from us what we want, what information do we want. So approach us and get us involved, then we give you the right information for us to be involved in the programming. So you end up maybe say, as the adults, we don't want our young people to have sex before marriage, but then on the ground you're having sex. So honestly, if you say, let's tell them to be abstaining, and then we want messages more than abstinence. We want to be talking about condoms. We want to be talking about safe sex. So I think it's very, very important at the local level you should involve us as the young people. You should approach us and we should give you the right information. Thank you.
Maybe it's very pragmatic and practical to say a way that, because I also saw some tweets. One, if you were a doctor, what is the first thing you would do? One said, if you were at a government, what is the first thing you would do? I would say if you're a local program implementer or program developer, bringing a few of your youths, if you're youth serving, bring in some of the young people as a panel, give them the relevant information, capacity building if needed, and then ask them the exact same question. And you'll be surprised what you'll hear. And that's youth-friendly, that's youth-engaging. And then ask them if they want to be exactly what you said, in the directory, in the review, advisory. Make them a part of it, not only being youth-serving, but make it a youth-adult partnership or a youth-led organization so that you're sure that they are engaged and they are served in the way that they want to be.
Thank you for your question. I think we could give plenty of examples of local level, but I would like to invite you to come to the youth village and meet all of us, because we are all come from youth-led organizations, and we came here with little to none funding, and we're still succeeding. And we are the examples of how we're succeeding, and we are convening here. So if you come to the youth village, the Amsterdam Youth Force, with all of our partners have worked so hard to build it. That is a huge space, is the largest youth mobilization here. So talking about what we need in the future, or, in meaningful youth participation, is this: we got this space here now, and we need from you guys to not, push us back. So it's just to enlarge and make it bigger and give us more, because we are doing this already. We are the ones who know. We are the one giving the support systems when, when the system is failing us. So just keep, making the room bigger, because we're not going anywhere. So please come and have a conversation.
Wow. Wow. Well, if you didn't hear that, then you don't have ears, or you don't know how they work, because you just summed everything up so beautifully. And I wish we could sit here and talk for another hour. But time flies when you're actually talking about things that are interesting from voices and hearts that know them better than anybody else. So I want to thank this incredible youth panelists, or each and every single one of them. I want to thank the youth in the audience who came out here today to support them. I want to say I hope that all of us will actually step up and proactively start supporting these youth organizations, these youth activists. And I really hope that we have more opportunities where people like you can come and sit at the table and actually make the decisions, be at the policy level. Yeah, I see you snapping. So this is obviously a conversation that you can never have in 1 hour. So we're going to continue this conversation, and I want to bring out my friend Quinn, because he's going to tell us how we're going to continue this conversation. And I beg of all of you to not stop this conversation. Please talk about the importance of youth when it comes to HIV and AIDS preventing. Quinn!
That was awesome.
I know, right?
That was so awesome.
I know.
I mean, I was back there taking notes. Actually, thank you. And thank you, everybody that has been here this afternoon. That was really exciting. So there are steps, obviously, as we've chatted through, that every one of us here today and watching live can take to increase meaningful youth participation. Today was a great example of that, but we've got to make sure to not only listen, because it doesn't end here, it starts here. We have to act on what we've heard, and we have to work with the people that are saying it. So we need to work to create and sustain systems that include youth and that serve youth. So let's commit to institutionalizing these systems, and above all, let's again make sure that we listen and we act and we work with the people that are the next generation. And for everybody that's already sitting here and that has already grabbed their seat, that is so awesome. Hold on to it. And for those of you out there, make sure to keep doing the work you're doing and grab your seat at the table, make the room bigger if you have to, and make sure to stay involved. Now, a few thank yous as we close out the session. First of all, thank you, Charlize.
Gosh,
and
so welcome. Thank you, guys.
And also, of course, thank you, Ambassador Burks. And thank you to all of our, once again. And once again, thank you to all of our youth participants. Big round of applause. Thank you. Now, I'd also like to give special recognition to a number of behind-the-scenes partners who put exceptional work into this session. So thank you to the Charlize Theron Africa Outreach Project. Yeah. Also the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. Yeah. The Amsterdam Youth Force. And, yeah. Woo! And Teenergizer. Come on. Yeah. And on behalf of myself and my team with the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, I would like to also thank the International AIDS Society for their close collaboration and partnership with us in making sure that this happened. So, as we wrap it up, I'd like to invite everyone here just now to please keep the conversation going and join us at the Gen Endit listening session in the Youth Pavilion Auditorium. I'm going to be heading there right now, and we want to continue to talk about the themes that we've been developing here and how to better empower youth. That's going to be right after this, so make sure to head over to the Youth Pavilion Auditorium for the Gen Endit listening session, and I hope to see you all there soon. Thank you so much. We're good.
When you hold and you squeeze it tight, but you make everything alright. When you hold and you squeeze, you make me feel so nice when I'm around you. Wake up in the morning and I'll spend my whole life with you. The sweetness of your smile helps away with all of my fears. If it should all go wrong, my life succumb to tears. I've never been so deep into anyone else but you. A place within my heart, never been so close to you. And if you want me to hang around and I'll never let go, I'll give you all my time, stick around with you for sure. But you make everything
Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to announce a special presentation of the Me and My Healthcare Provider Awards by Austrian singer and artist Conchita and the Honorable Edwin Cameron, Justice of the Constitutional Court of South Africa.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Don't all go. We have got a wonderful 20 minutes for you. And the two comperes are one a boring judge in the law and one a famous singer. Which one is which?
The singer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this conference has high points and it has low points. It has grief, it has joy, it has the wonders of interconnection, scientific progress, and human recognition. The next 20 minutes are our moment of human recognition. I am delighted to co-present this afternoon with Conchita, who gave a beautiful and moving speech last night. Let's have an applause for him. Let's get to the awards, ladies and gentlemen. They are about stigma, stigma, and stigma. We know that this has been the problem at the very core of this epidemic since 1981, when we first learned about this epidemic. Stigma on the grounds of race, stigma on the grounds of poverty, stigma on the grounds of sex work, stigma on the grounds of sexual orientation against me as a gay man, stigma against prisoners, stigma against injecting drug users. So we know that if we can deal with stigma, we'll have traveled very far in dealing with this epidemic. And for key populations, especially those that I mentioned, stigma is the key. Now, in the next few minutes, we are going to recognize those who are at the heart of the epidemic, the health carers who have combated stigma and who have done so successfully. The International AIDS Society has instituted these awards, Me and My Healthcare Provider. It's a campaign that focuses on the needs of key populations that are affected by HIV, like Conchita and I are. And it celebrates and promotes the efforts of these wonderful, dedicated individuals to increase access for care for us all?
Well, I know how important the relationship is between you and your healthcare provider. If we could move on with, oh, thank you so much. There's my speech. Well, frontline healthcare providers are fundamental to how we access and experience healthcare services and directly influence the quality of our care, impacting on our relation in the healthcare system. It may be a friendly receptionist, a committed nurse, a doctor that goes above and beyond to comprehend specific health issues, an understanding case manager or a pharmacist that grasps the challenges faced by key population. This year's nominees for the Me and My Healthcare Provider Award have been nominated directly from their own communities and are here today representing a variety of organizations. All of these recognized nominees have demonstrated fortitude, compassion, and insight in addressing some of the most pervasive challenges around delivery of comprehensive HIV care for key populations. We would now like to introduce the 2018 Me and My Healthcare Provider Award recipients.
Thank you very much, Conchita. Now it's our delight and joy to announce the first award recipient from Lebanon, Nesreen Rizk, who is an infectious disease physician at the American University of Beirut in the medical center there. And her nominator is Elle Balan. Nesreen is especially recognized for ensuring safe access to preventive services, medical care, medical treatment, health education, as well as psychological support to the men who have sex with men community in Beirut. Ladies and gentlemen, from my continent, moving southwards, the country that told us in the second half of the 1980s that this epidemic was going to burden Africa most heavily, from Uganda, we have the next nominee, Jeffrey Philip Wandawa. He's a social worker and he's an HIV counselor at one of the world's oldest AIDS support organizations, TASO. He's in the Regional Referral Hospital of Mbale District in Uganda, and he was nominated by Dalhousie Sempija. Why? For providing free, friendly healthcare services to key populations, in particular to transgender people in the Mbale District of Uganda. And we know how difficult it is for transgender, gay, lesbian people in Uganda, so a particular honor for this award. Let's welcome them. The third award recipient is coming even closer to my own country at the southern tip of Africa. South from Uganda is Malawi, another epicenter of the epidemic. And it's a great delight to bring forward the next nominee, Loveness Gunda, a nurse and midwife from Yoneko organization under the Dreams Linkages project in the Machinga district in Malawi. This nominee was nominated by Judith Ntini. Why? For providing comprehensive, stigma-free information and services on HIV and related health issues to sex workers, another highly marginalized, targeted group, perhaps the most persecuted group in this epidemic, sex workers, and their clients in the Machinga district of Malawi. A big hand, please, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, our fourth award recipient, and may I assure you that I'm not reading out all the nominees because I'm a bossy lawyer. We have a wilting flower of an internationally famous performer who asked me to do all four. That's a joke. Please laugh, ladies and gentlemen. Now we go to the former Soviet Union, to Kazakhstan, to Gul Zakan Akhmetova, who's an infectious disease doctor and clinical specialist at the Republican Center for AIDS Prevention and Control in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Her nominator is Oksana Ibragimova. The doctor is recognized for her work to address the psychological, social, and medical needs of people who inject drugs in Kazakhstan. A big round of applause, please.
Now let us give a warm round of applause to the 4 2018 healthcare champions for providing stigma-free services to key populations in the face of discrimination laws, tradition and belief. Thank you so much for doing the right thing. Thank you.